Hey everybody, I have just finished a new project and I cannot wait. I'm super excited to show it to you. And here it is. Isn't it great? Ugh, love it. So there is 366 pages in this journal because I've included the leap year page since this is 2020 and we have leap year this year. So we're going to take a look inside to do a flip through. Here's a close-up. Awesome. Get ready to rock and roll. And here we are, my 5-year journal. I'm really excited to show this to you today. So my intention is to get a hardcover book, which I found, and I printed off all of my pages and I was gluing them inside the book, and I soon discovered that that would not work because the book would have been bursting, and the hardcover book that I chose was just way too small, as you can see. I decided to take out all of the pages from the hardcover book that I chose, and I glued each of the pages into or on the pages of the hardcover book. And so I basically did it page by page. As I mentioned before, this is 366 because I included the leap year page. So let's show you sort of the outside of it first, and then we'll go inside. This is the cover. The cover is a hardcover. What I did is I took the hardcover from the book, the top and the bottom, and I used that and I cut it down to the size of my pages that I wanted, because the book that I had originally chosen was a little bit bigger. And I used some old fabric and lace, and I had some old fabric napkins that my grandmother had given me, and I put them all together, mishmash. I put them and I sewed an embroidery stitch on them. The title of my book is Bloom, and I stitched that on there. And here's my little key charm. What I did is that this picture I used, and also I used an image for each of the months in my book. And all of these pictures that I found on Flickr. And just so you know, those images I'm not selling this book. This book is for me and for personal use only, just so you know. So I sewed all of this on. These are all beads that I sewed around. Okay, I used my crocodile and I did eyelets on my cover and my back. This is my back. And this here is actually, I did an image and I printed it on fabric. Took it off the printer, ripped up the fabric, and I used that. Once again, this is a mishmash of ribbon and lace, and that I just sewn with my sewing machine. Okay, so that's my back. Obviously I used twine because I was going to use this way too small, as you can see. I used twine. So I do understand that I have to be very careful when I'm turning the pages because I don't want my pages to rip. Let's go inside. So this is my tie, and this I found I bought an old sheet that I really liked, and flipping this over. So this is an insert that I wanted to put in here to just sort of identify the book and what it was. A 5-year journal, and it already had Bloom on it, which is the title of my book. Before I put the insert and this back page on here, I made sure that I glued these ties down in the front and the back. I used E6000 glue because I love it. It doesn't move, it doesn't go anywhere, and it basically glues anything that you can imagine. I wanted to really make sure that these were in there and they weren't going to rip out, and so I didn't want to use just white glue or a glue gun. When I used it, I made sure I flattened it right down so I wouldn't have any bubbles or ripples. When I finally taped this down and glued it down, it laid flat, so it's completely flat. There's no ripples or bumps. For each month in my book, I found a image, as I mentioned, on Flickr. And I chose the images because I liked how they made me feel, or I liked the image, the colors, And so for each month, I did a cover page, if you will. And this is my January. Okay, so that's my January. So what a 5-year journal is that each page is a day. And on that day, it has 5 years. So each day you come and you write a one-liner or one sentence on that year of that day. So because I didn't start this journal in January, I started it in February. I started it February 13th. To begin this journal, I start this at 2021. So at the end of this year, I'll go back on January 1st of 2021. Then I'll start and do my January. But in February, I started that February 13th, 2020. So that's my February. Okay, and I love this because of the linen and the colors and how it makes me feel. I just love that. Okay, and I also did the leap year page for this. So I'm not going to show you all the pages because they're all basically the same. I just made sure that when I made my pages that I could choose colors and textures on it, that if I wrote something, I could see it. So as you can see, this is February 12th, and the year starts at 2021. But I started February 13th, 2020, which is fine. The February 13th doesn't really, there's no significance to it. I just did that. I just started it on the 13th. So this is my leap year page. So this is 2020 and 2024. Okay. This is my March. This is my March. I love this. And this is my April. So once again, I chose images that I really loved and how it made me feel. So I can imagine myself just standing here at the door early morning, breathing in this beautiful, fresh, clean morning air and just feeling at peace and the start of the day. And I just loved how that made me feel. So that's my April. Okay. This is my May. And I really liked this one because of the colors, and it's really subtle. And I thought it was very, very pretty. And sometimes subtlety can be very powerful. So I chose that. So that's my May. This is my June. And I'm also a textile artist, so I love textiles, I love fabric, I love old world and old things and antiques and vintage. I love that. So that's what it reminded me of. It reminded me of my grandmother because I love her. Okay, so July, this is my July, and these books were written by Jane Austen. I think one of them is Charlotte Bronte. I love them as well. So that's my July. And I'll show you how after this inside flip through, I'm going to show you how I actually did my pages and my cover pages using PowerPoint. This is my August. I grew up in the Rocky Mountains of Alberta, Canada. So for me, I love this because I can just imagine myself in this photograph and smelling all the smells of nature and the pine needles and the wildflowers, and it just makes me feel so peaceful and serene, and I just love that. It brings back a lot of good childhood memories. That's why I chose this. So that's my August. This is my September. I'm also a school teacher, and I like the colors. I like the old world. I like the slate, and so I chose this one as well. Love it. So that's my September. And my October, so this image I didn't find on Flickr. I actually created this image. So this image was its own, this image was its own. I merged them together using Photoshop, and they were both black and white, and I just colorized the dress here, and I put October, and I love the way that turned out. Sorry for the glare. That's my October. This is my November. Okay, and once again, the woods path, it's very serene. And this is my December. Turn that over, be very careful. I loved this because it reminds me of childhood, and I can see myself, sitting here at the desk doing some crafting and snowfall and candles and the hearth and just the smells and the warmth of the holiday and of family and of peace, and I loved that, so I chose that for my December. And that is my book. So just have to be careful when I'm flipping pages because I don't want my pages ripping out. And this is to last me for 5 years. And I really like the idea of like writing something that I've done one day and then coming back the next year and like, what did I do this time last year? And I like that concept. I like that idea. Sort of tracing my steps or tracing my life steps, as it were. So I've always wanted a diary like this, and I finally have one. Okay. So I'm probably not going to tie it up. I'll probably leave this open on my desk, and every day I'll just write my one-liner of each day. And that is my book. I'm going to show you how I actually did my cover pages for my images and my pages. Okay, so I'm showing you here in my PowerPoint of my month images or pictures. What I did is the original book that it was supposed to go into was, the measurements of it was 7.5 inches by 4.5 inches. I chose my images here from Flickr, as I've mentioned, and I'm not selling these pictures. They're just completely for this book and my personal use. What I did is uploaded these pictures. I uploaded 2 pictures per slide, and I just clicked on the image itself and went to format, and this is where I sized my pictures, so 7.5 by 4.5 inches, and I did all of my pictures in those sizes, and then I typed in the month, and I chose fonts that I liked, and I made sure that where I placed the fonts were on the picture where I could read the font very, very well, very clearly. If it couldn't, I kind of put a shadow or a glow around it. And I made sure that my font wasn't, or the size of my font wasn't so big. I wanted it to work with my image. So my January, February, here's my March and April. I did very little to edit these photographs. So either I bumped up the saturation, or I darkened it or lightened it. So here's my May and June. I chose images that make me feel something, that I really, really would never get bored looking at them. And then my December and November. So then after I did all of these and I put 2 per slide, I saved this PowerPoint. So I went up here and to my Save As, and I saved it as a PDF. So in PowerPoint, you can save things or slides in a PDF or even a JPEG if you want to. But I saved it as a PDF, okay? And then I went to the online Staples and I uploaded that PDF, and I had them print off my pictures onto photo paper. And the nice thing about Staples is that you can choose whether you want it matte or gloss or whatever. I kind of wanted a little bit of gloss, so I chose that. That's what I did for my pictures, and they came back perfectly, as you saw in my book. And I think I'll kind of keep them in mind because I love using Staples. I would never have gotten these colors or the quality on my printer. I have an inkjet printer, and I could have never have gotten the quality of these colors or the detail on my inkjet, so that's why I chose Staples. So if we move over to here, this is how I did my pages. I created my shape. I went in here, once again, we're in PowerPoint, and I went to my insert and I went to my shapes, and I chose the shape that had the beveled or the round corners because I wanted round corners for mine. I made sure that I did my shape, and I only chose a very thin line so that when I printed it off on my printer, because these I did print on my printer, I didn't send them to Staples because that would have been like a lot of money. The pages here that I printed on my scrapbooking pages, I did in my printer at home. I made sure my lines here and on each of these for each year were thin enough that I could see it, but I could cut and I wouldn't be able to see it. So what I did for these is that for each slide was 1 page, so I chose my scrapbooking paper that I could write and see my writing. Then I put it in the printer and I printed it off. When I did my sheets, I did each one that it was the opposite, because I didn't want to do August 1st and August 2nd the same color. So my August 1st and my August 31st, they're both the same color, but they're on different sides of the month. And that's kind of what I wanted, because I wanted each of my sheets to be different colors. First of all, I made sure that I started with just one template. I did this. I made sure that my height was 7 and 4. I did 7.5 by 4.5 for my cover month image, because I knew that I could cut it down to this size. And I made sure with my cover that my fonts were kind of in the middle or very far away from any of the edges. When I did cut, that I wouldn't cut my fonts. I did my sort of template first. I did the dates and the years, and then I went to new slide here, and I duplicated that slide so that these pages would all be the same where they were, and all I needed to go back into was to change my dates at the top. As you can see, August 2nd and August 30th. What I did is that I went down on one side and I went up on one side, or down and up, or whatever you want to call it. So I made sure I did all of that. So either I had 15 slides or either I had 16 slides, depending on how many days of the month that I had. August, it has 31 days. My 16 was its own page. What I did when I printed these all off and were cutting them out, because that's what took so long, me cutting these out, I made sure I just cut this out and I just put it aside. I didn't put in this blank page into my journal, but I put the 16 in. I printed each month I printed off onto my printer, and I made sure that the pages going in my printer were on the right side. So in my inkjet printer, that means the design of the scrapbook page had to be down instead of up. I made sure that that was on the bottom when it was printing. That's how I did my pages. Hey everybody, I just wanted to mention that I now have an Etsy shop. It's called KRLC Studio Digital Inspirations, and I actually make collage sheets. I only have 3 collage sheets so far, but I will be adding more. But just so you know, it's KRLC Studio. Come and check me out.